Assalamu alaikum to everyone. This is Muhammad Ishtiq, Lecture Department of English course. The subject is psycholinguistics. Today's the topic of discussion is the role of memory in language acquisition. There are many different aspects of the topic to be covered in this lecture. For instance, what is memory? Not only definition but along with its explanation, followed by the structure of memory, followed by types of memory, which include sensory information storage, SIS, also known as iconic memory or acquired memory by one of the researchers along its features, followed by short-term memory, STM for short, and its features, followed by long-term memory, LTM and its features, then differences between STM and LTM, and a very important topic of information processing mechanism. One last thing to be covered by the students, not by the teacher, is teaching applications. After studying memory, structure, types, differences, information processing mechanism, students will be able to know what can be the possible teaching learning applications of memory. The teaching learning applications of memory in general, but language teaching learning applications in particular should be focused on. Coming to the first slide. What is memory? Memory, according to Schwartz, 1962, is the storing of ontogenetically acquired information. Now, what is ontogenetically acquired information? The word ontogenetically can be considered as synonyms: developmental, emergence, and maturation of memory. Development, emergence, and maturation of memory. Ontogeny is a Greek word. Ontos means beings, genes means born of. So ontogenetically acquired information can be defined as the information which is acquired and stored and which can later on be retrieved by the organism to use it, to use the information when needed or if needed. So ontogenetic information, ontogenetically acquired information is actually not only acquired, rather it is stored or organized and can also be retrieved by the organism for further use in future whenever they need it. Ontogenetically also means psychomotor development. By psychomotor development, we mean the progressive acquisition of both mental and physical skills. So what do I mean by progressive acquisition? Progressive acquisition means that not all skills are acquired simultaneously. It also means skills which are difficult will be acquired later, and skills which are simple are acquired at the early stage of their life. So coming to the next slide, the structure of memory. The structure of memory has been investigated especially by Atkinson and Shafran in 1968. Their model contains three components: sensory memory, short-term memory, long-term memory. Can be seen in the slide. Sensory memory forms a very small part of our memory structure. Short-term memory is larger compared to sensory memory, and long-term memory is the largest part, forming the largest component of the structure of memory. Now we are going to discuss each one in detail one by one. Sensory information storage, SIS, or sensory memory, also known as iconic memory or also known as acquired memory. The sensory information storage is an iconic storage, storing visual or acoustic stimuli for a fraction of a second. So look, it's known as iconic storage because it actually stores information in the form of icon, means which can be visually seen, which you can hear. It's known as sensory memory because it's not actually memory, rather it's recognition of the things, recognition of stimuli in the form of senses. Something which we see, something which we hear, something which we touch, something which we smell, something which we taste, they form part of our memory, then to be processed to the next two stages, otherwise it will be vanished, lost very soon. So the time span of storing information in the sensory memory is very short, quite limited, fraction of a second. It's nothing. I mean, as soon as you sense something, we feel something. If we are not conscious, we are not attentive to it, it will be lost. Means as soon as things becomes part of sensory memory, should be immediately transferred by conscious attention to the short-term memory, and finally to the long-term memory with the help of other strategies. So the characteristics of sensory memory involve it's highly limited in terms of time span and amount of information retained. Means information can be retained in sensory memory only for a fraction of a second. And we have a flood of sensation. It's not possible to be attentive to all types of sensation. Only those sensations will be registered in our sensory memory to which we are consciously attentive. Means less important information, less important sensations go unnoticed. They never become part of our sensory memory. Only those information to which we are conscious, which seems to us important, they are processed to the next storage known as short-term memory. So it's nothing more than immediate sensory recognition of a stimulus. Sensory information or sensory memory is just the recognition of things. As soon as they are recognized, they are lost. However, if we just pause it to the short-term memory, then there's possibility of retaining it for some time. Next is short-term memory. STM, abbreviation for short-term. STM consists of what is in our immediate consciousness at any given time. Means sensations which are recognized with the help of senses are processed to the short-term memory, then they become part of the immediate consciousness at any given time. Coffee in 1981 notes that it is a sort of scratch for thinking. It contains all that is in our immediate awareness. So consciousness is something which refers to our immediate awareness of things. Subconscious are those which we can retrieve. Unconscious are those which can be retrieved with the help of some phenomena, not normally with the help of recalling. So, according to Mahler, 1950 said, 7 elements plus minus 2 can be stored in the STM short-term memory. 7 elements plus minus 2 means that 7 is the average. There can be 9 or there can be 5, but generally 7 is the median point, means up to 7 elements can be stored in the short-term memory. Sometimes we can store 9 elements plus, or sometimes we can store 5 elements minus 2. But generally 7 is the standard means for everyone. No more than 7 elements can be stored in the short-term memory. Now coming to its features. So he says that at the same time it's possible only to be 7 elements to be stored in the short-term memory. However, they remain there as long as you pay them conscious attention. This is important to note. The 7 elements, they remain there as long as you pay them conscious attention. So attention is a very important factor in memory. For instance, all the sensations we are receiving, but if we are not attentive, they may not be processed to the short-term memory. And short-term memory has got a very limited capacity in the sense that it can retain only 7 elements at the same time, no more than that, occasionally 9. However, very, very important fact to be noticed, to be kept in mind is that these 7 elements remain there if you are consciously attending to them. Otherwise, they may be lost. So, short-term memory has got very important features of paying attention. And it is this fact of paying attention which has also implications for teaching and learning process. Paying attention is in fact one of the important activities of our information processing systems. How? Because it is the means by which input is transferred from sensory to short-term storage. What is the means? The means is paying attention. Means those learners which do not pay attention, they will lose the information at a very early stage, meaning the sensory memory, mean the information will no more be processed to the next stage. And even if they are processed to the next stage, still they will need to pay attention. Otherwise, they may not store 7 elements, or they may not store as many as chunks of information. So it is the means paying attention is the means by which input is transferred from sensory to short-term storage. Hence, the importance of getting student attention if teaching is to be effective. If you are delivering something important, you need to get attention of your student. Otherwise, if you're not making them attentive to what is important, they may not process it from the short term to long term. So how they will process means when they hear it, when they are looking at you, means the sensations they get, the sensation will then be processed to the short-term memory. Short-term memory characteristics involves it's also highly limited in time span and amount, not as much limited as sensory memory, but still it's limited in time in amount. For instance, Mallers conclude this average capacity is around 7 discrete items plus or minus 2, and in case additional items of information come in, means additional items more than 7 discrete item, they will definitely push out some that are already there. Means it's not possible to adjust more than 7 or occasionally more than 9. It involves a matter of seconds, not minutes, hours, or days. Look, sensory memory can only retain information for a fraction of a second, whereas short-term memory can only retain information for seconds, not fractions of seconds, but for seconds. So it should be noted it's not for minutes even, not for hours, not for days even. So seconds, if you don't pay attention, again, there's very strong likelihood that the information may be lost. One important thing for information to be retained in short-term memory is rehearsal. The information in short-term memory is highly dependent on rehearsal. Otherwise, they may be lost very soon. So next is long-term memory. Long-term memory is clearly of greatest concern to the educators. This kind includes all of our relatively stable information about the world, all that we know, but that is not immediately conscious. The information stored in the LTM, long-term memory, is not just a copy of the memory trace in the STM, mean the information when they are processed to the long-term memory, they no more remain the same information as they used to be in the short-term memory. Means they are converted, they are transposed into concepts and meanings rather than names and words. The transference of material from short-term memory to long-term memory involves encoding. This is what is important. Again, students needs to be attentive to this fact that the transfer of material from short-term memory to long-term memory involves encoding, a process whereby meaning is derived from experience. So it's not actually rote learning. It's not actually, you can say, learning by heart. Rather, it is conceptualizing things. We are no more memorizing names in words, sounds. Rather, we are conceptualizing things. So the transference of material from sensory memory to short-term memory involves attention, and the transference of material from short-term memory to long-term memory involves encoding. Encoding is a process in which meaning is derived from experience. So what is encoding? To encode information is to transform or abstract it, to represent it in another form, not just in the manner of copy, getting a copy from short-term memory to the long-term memory. No, it is actually making things, transforming things into different forms. Now coming to differences between STM and LTM. The STM has a limited capacity. The LTM has an unlimited one. We know limited means it only remains for seconds, whereas in LTM it may be stored for quite a long time, for months, for hours, for years, and for unlimited time, we may say. In unlimited capacity it has got. We can store many different types of information. There's no limit to it, as is the case with the short-term memory, in which case we can only store 7 discrete items. If we want to include additional information, then some of the 7 discrete items needs to be removed. So it encodes primarily physical and phonological characteristics. That's why it's iconic or archaic. Whereas the long-term memory encodes primarily semantic features, meanings and concepts, not words, symbols, sounds. Rather, it encodes concepts derived from these sounds and structures. The short-term memory describes an active, ongoing conscious process. Active means it's immediate awareness, things which are part of our immediate consciousness, immediate awareness. Where the long-term memory describes a more passive, unconscious process. Unconscious means long-term memory has got things which has happened and stored in our mind since long ago, and we can retrieve it with the help of sometimes stream of thought, stream of consciousness. The short-term memory is easily disrupted by external events. As we demonstrate every time, we lose our train of thought due to some distraction, whereas the long-term memory cannot easily be disrupted. Finally, information transferred through attending and maintained through rehearsal in short-term memory. Information is transferred through attending from sensory memory and maintained through rehearsal in the short-term memory, whereas information transferred to long-term memory involves more than the simple process of rehearsal and repetition. It involves encoding, abstraction. It's a very chemical process of purifying things, stripping them out of their structures and sounds, entertaining only the concept, important concept involved. Finally, this is actually the flow of information, information processing mechanism in different types of memory. As you can see, the first is actually iconic or archaic memory. Input in the iconic or archaic memory is actually in the form of impression or sensation, and iconic or archaic memory, also known as sensory memory, it transferred to the short-term memory, which is also known as primary memory, in which information is maintained through rehearsal, and information in the primary memory is in the form of words or names maintained by rehearsal. Information from short-term memory or primary memory is again transferred to secondary memory, in which information is stored in the form of coded information, encoded information from short-term memory, as explained earlier. In there, information resides in the form of concepts and meanings. So look at the third. So if we come to iconic or archaic, just below it is impression association, and then the arrow actually indicates that information in iconic or archaic memory is soon forgotten because there's impression and sensation. They are very, very, you can say, lasting for a very limited time. Similarly, information in the primary memory, short-term memory in the form of words and names, they're also forgotten very soon, whereas information in the secondary memory, or you can say long-term memory, which are encoded, which are semantic information retained in the form of concepts and meanings, they are retained rather than forgotten. So let's summarize it. The three components of memory. The top row depicts three types of memory. The middle row depicts the contents of the memory process, and the third, or the bottom row depicts the information, state of information in the three different types of memory. Sensory information first enters sensory memory, also known as iconic or acquired memory. From there, it may go into short-term memory. It may go, not necessarily go, means it may go if attention is there, if conscious attention is there. If attention is lost, it may not be transferred to the short-term memory, also called primary memory. Where it is available is a name or word. For example, as long as it is rehearsed, again, information, if transferred to primary memory, may not necessarily be transferred to the long-term memory. It is only possible when they are rehearsed, retained there. And then some of the material in short-term memory may then be coded for long-term storage, where it might take the form of meanings and concepts, semantic contents, rather than phonological, formal, and structural content. So it is important to note that these three components of memory do not refer to three different locations in the brain or other parts of the nervous system, but refer to how we remember, or more precisely, how we study memory. So important things to be noted is that the three different types of memory are not just physical location in which it is just the process. The process symbolized, you can say, the abstract process of meaning making, information storage, information flow is actually, you can say, materialized in the form of these three different memories. You may not say that these have got different locations in the brain. So now coming to the last important topic, implications for language teaching and learning. So what do you think? Does knowledge about the structure of memory? Structure of memory means its division into sensory, short-term, long-term, or its division into iconic, primary, and secondary memory. And information process mechanisms means how information flow takes place from sensory with the help of attending to short-term, with the help of rehearsal, then to long-term. Does it help in facilitating the process of teaching learning in general, and of language teaching learning in particular? If yes, come up with cogent argument. References. The material has been actually taken from different sources. In case of any question you may ask, you are welcome.